Black Ops 6 is here, and we've got all the scoops in this one. I was out in LA the past few days, chatted with developers, and got a bit of hands-on time in order to give you as much information as possible. This is the first of many videos going up on the channel this week in regards to Black Ops 6 information and deep dives into the upcoming systems. So make sure you subscribe for more coverage along with a bunch of other FPS content, but let's get into it. First, let me clarify a bit of how this video will be presented. I did indeed play the game, but legally speaking, I am not allowed to disclose any personal insights or anything about the actual gameplay that we ended up having in that playtime. It was about an hour or so that we ended up playing. What I can do though is relay to you all the information in the briefing, which is essentially what we just had hands-on with in an objective perspective. Like quite literally, I'm just going to tell you what we ended up seeing and had shown to us, where a lot of that objective information would translate how you think it would to hands-on feel. And while I can't tell you direct thoughts or opinions on the experience that I had, if you've been around the channel the past few years, you'll probably be able to decipher how I feel. That said, I do implore you, use the information here today to form your own opinions to whatever degree that may be. As always, I'm just a guy on the internet trying to give you as much information as possible so you can stay in the loop and you can be as knowledgeable as you possibly can. In no way is it my place to tell you how you should or should not feel, what you should or should not like. I'd still highly recommend waiting for additional genuine footage, as we of course weren't allowed to record Black Ops 6 gameplay, and even wait for that free-to-play window of the beta or something to try it out for yourself to make full and proper judgment. Today, we're talking information. So they started out this sort of briefing and presentation by describing it as your sort of standard PR stuff. Signature Black Ops multiplayer, approachable and engaging, action-packed opportunities. MP will take place canonically after the campaign, so plenty of opportunities to expand the story as well. But from a top-down perspective, probably the biggest thing here in regards to like new features is the omnidirectional movement, or more properly as they're dubbing it, Omnimovement. This I would probably say is the single largest innovation to multiplayer movement since tac sprint, the slide cancel, and things of the like in the last few years, even more so perhaps. In a nutshell, because we'll be breaking it down a bit further in a second video here today in a few hours time, it allows you to keep the same fluidity and speed of anything you're used to doing at the fastest pace moving forward of the last few years, but backwards, sideways, diagonal, all of that kind of stuff, and also allowing you to do things like diving to shoot faster. You can dive to your back while shooting and so on. So we'll have a bit more to deconstruct this in full in a video later today, so keep an eye out for that one. But you also have things called corner slicing, where as you approach a surface, you'll intuitively lean around it to punch through. It's not anything from what they showcased that I would say is anything to be worried about, but it might be something that is a little sticker shock at first, but I'd imagine you get used to it pretty quickly. You also have new door bash, where your character leans more into it. It's a bit more intuitive, a bit more lifelike and realistic in that sense. So that's something that'll be a slight alteration, but truth be told, I don't really bash through too many doors enough. And again, in gameplay, like throughout the years, once a door is open through the game, I don't close it all that much that I'm going to bash through it again. So that's one of those things that might be a sort of movement system they describe that becomes lesser used or lesser paid attention to as time goes on, but it was something they sold right up front as a fundamental feature for how your character model will interact with the environment at hand. One of the biggest things, though, coming out of the information for multiplayer, though, was the return of Prestige. Yes, Classic Prestige is indeed going to be making a return here within Black Ops 6, which is maybe some sort of shock to some players, because you figured with the COD HQ, everything being this unified ranking system, and what we've had the past 4 or 5 years now since Modern Warfare 2019 being a seasonal system in some variation, to go back to just straight up Classic Prestige, that's a little strange perhaps, but it is something that is probably a welcome change. It is something that I'm looking forward to, and here's a little bit about it. Again, you are going to have that Classic Prestige system, so if you guys have been here from years back up until now, and it seems weird to say that like this is an air quote old feature at this point, but you have level 1 to 55, which is your first initial military levels, where it's the unlock period for everything. But then you go into this choice for Prestige. Like in prior games, you do not need to Prestige, and you can stay at level 55 of no Prestige, 1 Prestige, or upwards of 10 Prestiges, and unlike recent games, you won't be sort of forced into that Prestige by it just simply being a milestone level that you pass. You'll actually have that classic choice to hit and go into another Prestige or stay where you're at. Again, 10 Prestiges, so once you Prestige, it will relock everything that you have and unlock it once again, with rewards coming for each Prestige. Now, if that's something that is interesting to you, but you're like, okay, I'm going to go through 10 Prestiges pretty quick, you're going to have the return of Prestige Master as well, where you're going to have 1,000 levels post 10th prestige, with special rewards along the way, and it's detailed as there's redacted rewards at level 1000. The team that was describing this here at Treyarch seemed really keen on what those redacted rewards would be, so hopefully some pretty cool stuff. Probably going to be a race to see who can unlock those first, but anyways, all of this is playable with day one, no seasonal level cap or anything. It's not like you have the option to go up to Prestige 3 in the preseason, Prestige 6 in Season 1, and so on and so forth. You can, if you're a true grinder, I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there, you can get to level 1000 perhaps by the time Season 1 kicks off. So it is going to be something that it's a bit more, I don't want to say constrained, where you're going to have a finite endpoint, but it is something that is the classic Prestige once again. Now, whether or not in the future there's anything that is adjusted here to this, we had no details given on that, but I keep pitching the career rank where you can maybe have that cap that is level 1000, but then you have something in the background that maybe is just for you or your squad or friends, whatever. You can see that maybe, oh, I've done the equivalent of the level 1000 grind 4 times over, so you're level 4000, but maybe that displays publicly, maybe not, but it's something that you can see for sure. Not to stick too long on one aspect, create a class was also something that was detailed a little bit, where it seems like it's a hybrid system of the new gunsmith that we're going to be breaking down again in more depth in a future video, but it seems like a hybrid between Cold War's create a class as a good starting point and recent features that changes things up a little bit. You'll have 5 attachments on weapons by default, but you can use a wild card to end up getting 8. So again, coming back to where it's kind of like Black Ops Cold War system most recently, where it had those wild cards, you had the ability to get more than just your basic level offering, but definitely some cool stuff, I think. You'll have the return of score streaks, proper score streak system, but there is no detail on wrapping from our briefing just yet. So I'm curious to see if that'll be answered here in the near future at any point. But next, let's talk a little bit about maps. We know that we have 16 maps coming at launch. It is something that's described as 12 core 6v6 maps, which are exclusively 6v6, and then 4 strike maps that are going to be meant to play at 2v2 and 6v6 face-off style. Small and always in the action, like what we had in Black Ops Cold War. Honestly, I love those kind of things. It was like a way to introduce new shipment style maps without being shipment or Nuketown or something like that. So it was just chaotic energy and everything that came along in Black Ops Cold War, and it's going to be something that bolsters that out now with this one. So you are going to see 16 maps that are brand new, but again, just depends on what you like to play, perhaps. Like, if you play 6v6, you do have the option of playing all 16 in some capacity, again, with face-off as a designated playlist and just your core modes in 6v6, 12 of those at that point. But then if you're somebody that likes 2v2 and seemingly gunfight, that seemingly inadvertently confirmed gunfight, they didn't mention it by name in our presentation at all, but I mean, playing 2v2 on this is seemingly gunfight, so you're going to end up having 4 additional maps designated for those as well, but a little bit of crossover into the core 6v6 experience. Now, of the maps listed in our presentation, we learned about a couple called Scud, Skyline, Derelict, and Pit. Scud, based off the image that was given here, it seemed to be a desert map that I imagine follows a campaign mission where you're trying to stop Scud missiles from launching. Skyline appeared to be a rooftop map of some kind. It looked almost like a penthouse. Derelict appeared to be an abandoned and overgrown train yard. Pit looked to be a small cave map, given again that it was a strike map, but that it was just a sort of dimly lit cave from the image, so you don't know anything about how big that actually is. There was one redacted map that was showcased of the images, but by the looks of it, while it was 70% of the preview covered up, it did appear to be Nuketown in a desert, which makes sense to see again here, like sand dunes kind of covering up some of the buildings. So curious to see how that is changed in any of the design capacity or if it alters any of the gameplay feel, but you kind of figured Nuketown was going to be coming, and it seems like it is as a redacted strike map. Now, designed with competitive in mind is the final note that they gave us here at this, so while it's something that competitive isn't for everybody, it is nice that competitively designed maps, I think, are in the rotation here, because it is something that usually just means the gameplay flow is a little bit better on those maps than stuff that may be super asymmetrical or anything like that. But beyond that, theater mode returns, which is a huge thing, I think. This is something that I don't quite know if it's going to be a staple going forward, but it has been a staple of Treyarch games. Fingers crossed this is a little bit better than Black Ops Cold Wars. Black Ops Cold Wars was finicky, to say the least. It was a little bit broken at times, and I know that I lost a bunch of recordings. It would crash on me quite a bit. So fingers crossed this is better in this capacity, but it's nice to see this now on the COD HQ IW9, whatever the hell they're calling the engine anymore. It's nice to see it now on this, which hopefully means that in the future, perhaps if it's something that's used enough by the player base, then justifies implementing it into each game, we can see it going into the next COD game after this, into Infinity Ward's game after Black Ops, presumably 7 next year in 2025 into 2026, maybe even into Warzone. So that's something that I'm excited to see the potential here of this returning, but that's going to be a key pillar of the game as well. Now, as for some smaller stuff that details and kind of rounds out a bit of the multiplayer experience that they showcased with this presentation, we have HUD presets coming, which is going to allow you for the first time ever to change the position of some of your core HUD elements. Like, they showed off versions where the minimap would be in the bottom left or bottom right, with a compass above the minimap and not atop of the middle of the HUD. There are a handful of really cool and useful alterations, I think, to the HUD, but at least as of launch, it seems like it's going to be in set presets. So maybe like a half dozen presets you can play around with and change some stuff with, but it doesn't seem like you'll be able to grab certain widgets and icons and place them to where your heart's content, but maybe that's something in the future that does come. They detailed some of the post-game stuff where best play and winner's circle returns, meaning that seemingly emotes and gestures appear to be returning as well, which, based on some campaign footage, you might be able to see like an item wheel in campaign that could transition into like an emote wheel that we saw in Black Ops 4. There's air quote factions that were too described. I don't know if this is actually in-game factions though, or if it's like just the sort of described design direction here with this, but they detailed the Rogue Black Ops, which is a more street clothes design to the characters, where you're trying to blend in and not be sort of stand out as a known military operative. But then you have Crimson 1, which are like your mercs, those people that really do look and feel militaristic in their design. So that could be something that applies to in-game factions, but we don't quite know at the moment. It might just be in relation to design. There's also mention of a streamlined UI for this, which, listen, don't get ahead of yourselves here. While I don't have any information on it in-game to share with you, it's still going to be COD HQ, but as with Modern Warfare 3, I'd expect some improvements, but not everything is likely fixed to exactly what you want. You need to wait for more hands-on with that to confirm. They did showcase a little bit of a screenshot in the presentation where it did get a little bit better, it seemed like, but again, you still had those core elements of like the social menu up in the top as a COD HQ functionality. One thing that I did like though is that the quick join feature, according to them, is returning here with this. So that's awesome because frankly, the COD HQ social menu sucks. I can't stand it, so I'm excited to be able to just quickly join my friends based off of that. But beyond that, we also learned of improved animations. With Black Ops 6, every character model has 9 hit locations, not hitboxes, so we're not talking about damage registry or anything like that, but animation locations, which is all custom tailored to various shots, so deaths will look a lot more cinematic than before. And for comparison, 9 hit locations for animations in Black Ops 6 is comparable to every game prior only having 4. So you're going to see a lot more sort of tailored animations, which is pretty cool for what your character model does. And then finally, we'll have a dynamic death cam that was detailed for multiplayer, which will follow your death a bit more instead of just like punch out to third person and watch your character ragdoll. So you might be exploded and thrown across the room, or you might have a shotgun just absolutely blast you into Kingdom Come and you see your character fly backwards. So that kind of stuff is introduced as well, but that is essentially Black Ops 6 multiplayer in a nutshell and what we were shown off and what was going to be available here as of this early information. Of course, a multiplayer reveal is upcoming later in the year where we're going to have so much more detailed, but right now that's the early information we ended up getting. So that said, that is where we're going to wrap it up. We are of course going to keep the Black Ops 6 momentum rolling here with a bunch of content you guys won't want to miss. So make sure you stick it here on the channel for more content talking about the gameplay and movement mechanics, the gunsmith and everything like that, along with a ton of other things you guys will not want to miss. So won't keep you guys any longer. Thanks so much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and of course, I'll see you guys in the next one. My name's been Espresso. Take care and peace.